to just formally introduce our amazing guest who flew halfway around the world to be with us here today, and we are delighted to have you back at Sherif Israel. It's really a privilege to learn from you and about you and your amazing community, and to share some music with you, which brings us all together into one community in one place. We're all exactly the same when we start singing together. So the formal bio of our guest this morning, this afternoon, I guess. What's the time difference to Uganda?
It's 11 hours.
11 hours. So for you, it's, I don't know, middle of the night. Rabbi Gershom Sizomu was ordained at the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in 2007. He is the spiritual leader of the 100-year-old Abayudaya community of almost 3,000 Jews in rural villages in Eastern Uganda. He is the grandson of community elder Rabbi Samson Mugombi and lives near the Moses Synagogue in the village of Nabugoya, which he and others from the community's early 1980s Kibbutz movement built with their own hands. His goal has been to gather back together what was left of the Abayudaya community after the devastating reign of Idi Amin, which ended in 1979. So lots of information that we're going to learn about the history and the families of this community. Rabbi Gershom has been helped in building this community by our American Jewish communities that take responsibility to help build our fellow communities around the world very seriously. And we're very, very honored to have you here and to be able to learn from you. So there's more information about ways to help the community that are available on this piece of paper we'll leave up here, and you can find out more about the details afterwards. But for now, I introduce Rabbi Gershom.
Thank you. I have chosen to start with a song of brotherhood and sisterhood, which is the Hinema Tov Umanai, and also the Am Israel Chai, written by Noam Katz in Uganda with Abayudaya. But the Hinema Tov Umanai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Hinema Tov Umanai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Hinema Tov Umanai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Abagwe Kulyo Kukunji Bemusamusa Abolugada Okutula Wama Hinema Tov Umanai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Kitu kizuri sana kinapendeza, wadada na wandugu wakiwa pamoja. Hinema Tov Umanai Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Israel Chai, oh, Yavim Chai, oh, Yavim Chai, Am Israel Chai, Am Israel Chai. The people of Israel are alive. Thank you so much. As very well introduced, first of all, I want to thank you for welcoming me here back. I come from a country that would have become Israel had the World Zionist Congress accepted the proposal to make Uganda a home for the Jewish people. I probably would be the chief rabbi of Israel. So in 1919, a gentleman called Semei Kapungulu read a Christian Bible that was given to him as a tool of converting him and our community to Christianity. At the end of the reading of the Bible, Semeka Bungu was inspired by the story of Abraham. He circumcised himself like Abraham did, circumcised his sons and his servants, and began to teach the same to members of our tribe. He ripped the Christian Bible into two parts and gave back the Christian part, which is the New Testament, to the missionaries, and maintained the Old Testament, observing all the laws that he could observe. He had a big following in 1919, about 8,000. They would have been more. They would have actually been more than 8,000. They could have been. The only drawback was the circumcision. You know, not many tribes, we have maybe 1 or 2 tribes that do circumcision in Uganda. The rest don't. And Semeka Bungu came from a tribe that does not do circumcision. And so many people feared to join the new community. But it is all because Judaism provided a way of life rather than Christianity that only preached about following Jesus. Judaism said, 6 days, you can do all kinds of work, but have time to rest. And this is the 7th day. And don't eat everything that you find on the street. There is a list of animals that you may not eat, characteristics of animals that you might eat. Insects, insects, kosher insects and kosher insects. I know you don't eat insects in the US. In Uganda they do. And grasshoppers are kosher according to halakha and law. So they even fish. So this was fascinating. It was like God saying, you are my children, and I'm giving you a guidance of how to live. And that is what was the most attractive part of it. The most unique part of this story is that they were not influenced by an outside Jew. It all came from their personal reading of the Bible, more specifically Semeka. And so he tried very much to observe biblical Judaism, which was difficult because, for instance, on Passover, instead of the Seder, which is rabbinic, they did the Kurban Pesach, the sacrifice that is mandated. Every evening of Pesach, the Torah says you shall offer a lamb as a sacrifice to God. We call it the Kurban Pesach. The Seder is purely rabbinic. So for all the time the community started, they observed some sacrificial customs, including considering their synagogue as a temple. And we have rules pertaining to the temple. When the temple was still existing, people who were tameh means you are ritually impure. For instance, if somebody died, hasbe halila, nobody should die. If somebody died, everybody in the room would become pure unclean, ritually unclean. And if you touched the body, you would spend 7 days. And that's what they observed, because they considered their synagogue a temple. They also observed the laws of Nida for women, that during the monthly cycle, a woman becomes ritually impure for 7 days. And they were not allowed to go into the synagogue. They removed the shoes on entry into the synagogue because of what happened at the burning bush when Moses is called upon to remove the shoes. because the ground he's standing on is Adimat Kodesh or Holy ground. So these were like non-rabbinic observances, which made observance of Judaism quite difficult. Nevertheless, they happily continued to observe Judaism amidst hatred and anti-Semitism from the Muslims and the Christians, who called them Christ killers. And the word Abayudaya, there, as you see it, I need to have my pointer. I don't know. Oh. Peter, where are you? I come from Africa where there's no much technology. Did I just switch off using the pointer behind?
This is the laser pointer.
Okay, so okay.
And then this is next slide.
Next slide. Okay. All right. Let me use the pointer.
Press it a little harder.
Ah. So you look at the word Yuda. Y-U-D-A. Yuda means Jew. It refers to all of you. It doesn't only refer to my community, but also in the anti-Semitic language, it refers to traitors and Christ killers. So if you introduced yourself today, even the very today, you went into a crowd of people who don't know about Abayudaya, and you said, hey, I am Rabbi Gershom, the leader of Abayudaya. Everybody will just laugh because they might think you are joking because you are introducing yourself as a traitor or as a Christ killer. So even today, it is anti-Semitic. So unfortunately, when the community started vibrantly with Semeika Kungu, there was no other leader that was prepared in the eventuality of the disappearance of Semeika Kungu. And it happened in 1928 that he suffered pneumonia and he could not go to a missionary hospital. The only hospitals available at that time were missionary hospitals. The only schools available were missionary schools. So in order to be accepted at a hospital, missionary hospital, you needed to go through some kind of conversion. A priest would lay their hands on you, pray for you in the name of Jesus, and then probably give you a Christian name before they would treat you. And for Semeika Kungu, that was too much. He was a Jew by choice and by himself, so he could not accept to be converted to Christianity or to be prayed for in the name of Jesus. So he rejected that and died at the age of less than 60. He wasn't 60 yet, according to my grandfather. My grandfather was one of the people, one of his original rabbis that he trained, and he tells me all his stories. He also passed on in 2002, before I came to rabbinic school. So without a leader like Semeika Kungu, my grandfather volunteered to be the next leader. He did not have the resources like Semeika Kungu had, and the community began to shrink. From 8,000, the numbers went down drastically. Until 1962, my grandfather was still leading this community. And what happened in 1962 is the embassy of Israel opened in Kampala. The ambassador was told about the existence of a local Jewish community and said, oh, well, this is really good. We have an indigenous Ugandan Jewish community. Mobilized some of his staff, and they chose to visit on Pesach. So they put boxes of matzah, wine, hagadot, and they drove 5 hours from the capital Kampala to Mbale, which is where we are. So there were no phones, there were nothing, so the visitors were surprise visitors. They only showed up, and you can guess what they found the community doing. Preparing the Paschal sacrifice. The hosts were not aware of the Seder, and the guests were shocked, of course, to see that the community they were visiting did not have knowledge of the Seder or Rabbinic Judaism. The hosts were also shocked, of course, and they wondered if the guests were really Jews. So there was a standoff. It was a standoff until the ambassador and his team explained that with the destruction of the first and second temple, Jews no longer do sacrifices. And so what did they do? The community went, oh, hey, that's news to us. So what should we do? They said, okay, we have a solution. This is matzah, this is hakadah, this is wine, and according to Rabbinic Judaism, we are supposed to drink 4 cups of wine, and we are supposed to eat matzah. Matzah is commanded in the Torah, actually. The problem is that our community did not know how to do it. Because according to the rabbis, when you make matzah, the dough must not last more than 18 minutes. It must be less than 18 minutes before it expands. So that was all news. The community was excited. Of course, after the Kurban Pesach, they prepared their Paschal sacrifice, and after then, there was a Seder, and my grandfather says there were about 1,000 people at that Seder. 1,000 Jews. The embassy was impressed by the commitment. We do communal Seders even today. It was a tradition that we still continue to do. Like my Seder this year was attended by about 600 people. But so it was less than the Seder that was organized in 1962. So the embassy offered to introduce our community to Rabbinic Judaism. And they sent in Sidurim, Hebrew books, and they offered to educate 2 of our younger people at a yeshiva in Israel. They would come back as Orthodox rabbis to lead our community. Unfortunately, had they received their visas to go to Israel, then Idi Amin took power. Idi Amin, all of you know, was a dictator president of Uganda. I'm going to show the slides. I want to run through this, and then the slides will be just pictures, so you have a feel. The pictures will take you to Uganda, so you can see some Uganda. So Idi Amin immediately expelled the Israelis, gave them maybe 48 hours to leave the country, closed the embassy. Idi Amin also outlawed Judaism. So during Idi Amin, we were not allowed to wear kippot, do any rituals, no circumcision, brit milah, no festivals, not even go. Our synagogues were closed, so we were not allowed to even go to the synagogue. I remember 2 of the elders went to collect the iron sheets of one of our synagogues that had been blown away by a storm, and they wanted to save the iron sheets. They were arrested and tortured for doing that. So Amin was very terrible. He killed so many people by firing sword. One of our people, Enoch, was murdered in 1976 when, after he went to drink in a nearby local bar where they drink banana wine, millet liquor. So he was drunk at night and he went home singing the songs like you had I Sing. And on the streets, you know, people who drink in Uganda walk home and they stagger home and they want to show that they are so happy. he forgot that he was living under Idi Amin and he served Jewish souls. And it wasn't one time he used to do so. So one time they rounded him up and they cut him into pieces and he died. I remember because I was 7 years old and we went to do the funeral, but no funeral service. So body parts were wrapped into some white cloth, a grave was dug, and we just deposited him without a service. There was no bar mitzvah, there were no weddings. The entire 9 years of Amin's regime were a mess. I grew up during that time, and it was so bad onto us. Everywhere we went, other children would call us Christ killers. They had the opportunity. You know, when there is a crisis, the haters can be seen. Like now, because of the war in Gaza, you see people protesting everywhere, making it difficult for some of us to wear kippot because you fear that somebody might pounce on you. So this is what happened during Idi Amin's time. And I remember also that my dad was arrested because he decided, let me build a sukkah. He loved the sukkot. We used to sleep in the sukkot, eat in the sukkot. But this time he said, no, I'm not going to eat there, I'm not going to do anything. Let me just build something. Because it felt weird that during Sukkot, nothing is built. And our community was known for that. One of the unique observances that Muslims and Christians don't do, they don't build those structures. But in our community, you move around the village and you know who is Jewish and who is not. There is a sukkah there. Like here, you just look at the doorpost, if there is no mezuzah, or if there is a mezuzah, you know that is a Jewish home. So my father was arrested and he was being led to be killed because there was no other punishment. Jails, Amin said, I'm not going to fill jails with people who don't obey. Whoever disobeys should be fired to death. Our father survived because the arresting officer accepted a bribe. We bribed him with 5 goats, and my father survived. I also remember that in 1976, Amin invited terrorists, Palestinian terrorists, who had hijacked a plane full of Jewish people, taken them hostage. And those hostages were in Entebbe. That's why I said, you know, Uganda was supposed to be Israel. The other country where hostages are being held is actually in Israel itself, unfortunately. So these hostages were in Entebbe. And what impressed me as a child is the successful rescue of the Jewish hostages by a commando force of the IDF led by Yoni Netanyahu. They flew all the way from Israel, 3,000 kilometers, undetected. They were flying below the radar, I'm told. And flying below the radar means you are flying maybe on house tops, rooftops of houses and the trees. That was a big risk because some countries, like Uganda, has mountains. You could crash into a mountain. But they did so successfully, although Yoni Netanyahu, who is the brother of Bibi Netanyahu, was shot dead and 2 others were killed. But all of the hostages, all of the remaining hostages were rescued by an Israeli army. Talk on the street was, Jewish people are protected by their God. And as a child, that was positive. In a time when being Jewish was scary, in 1976, after the rescue of hostages, it became a positive statement to say that Jewish people are protected by their God. And I had the opportunity to attend the unveiling of the memorial for Yoni Netanyahu. In 2016, I was in government. It is another story. I became a member of Parliament of Uganda. under exceptional circumstances. And then when Bibi Netanyahu came to Kampala to open that memorial, I was invited by both the government of Uganda as a rabbi and by the Israeli embassy to attend that ceremony in Entebbe. We said Kaddish, and I met some of the commandos. They were still alive. They flew 2 of those planes back to Uganda in 2016, and they were still flying. I don't know if they refurbished them, but they came and we had that ceremony at Entebbe. I was impressed further by the fact that we celebrated the rescue of the hostages at Entebbe. But I remember that my dad prayed during that quiet celebration in our bedrooms. My dad prayed that God help to get rid of Idi Amin, because that was a sign. The humiliation of the Ugandan army by a small commando unit of the Israeli army was a sign that maybe Idi Amin would go. And that prayer was heard because the answer was received on the 11th day of April 1979, when Idi Amin was defeated by a combined force of Ugandan rebels and the Tanzanian army. 11th day of April 1979 was Pesach, the Erev Pesach. We celebrate freedom on Pesach. And this time, we celebrated double freedom from Pharaoh, from Idi Amin. I was 10 years old at the Seder, and that was my first time at the synagogue. Because when I was born, Amin took power. And so I wasn't able to relate to a synagogue. They opened up the synagogue and they said, wow! It was closed for all that time, and we had to sweep all the dirt from the lizards were all over the synagogue. We had to sweep all that and prepare for the Seder. About 300 people attended. And my grandfather, who was the rabbi there, said, instead of 4 cups, we are going to double. Because it is double redemption. You know, the cups are for purposes of redemption. The 4 cups are going to have purposes of redemption. From Pharaoh, now we have Amin. So if you can't drink 8, but they drank more than the number. And at the end of that Seder, as a child, I saw for the first time 300 members of my community, very, very happy. And I whispered to my grandfather with that impression that I would be the rabbi. So I said, Jaja, we call them Jajas. A grandfather is called a Jaja, even a grandma is called a Jaja. So he said, Jaja, can I be the next rabbi? And he laughed at the top of his voice and announced to everybody, hey, listen, we have a rabbi here. They called me Rabbi as a name. And it was registered when I went to do my primary, elementary school, to get a certificate. We get certificates at the end of elementary school. So my elementary school certificate reads Rabbi Gershom as my name. My high school certificate, my college degree. So now I came to rabbinic school in Los Angeles, and they refused to register me as Rabbi Gershom because I had come to rabbinic school. I did not tell them this story. They would have registered me as such. But now if you look at my passport, which is here, it says Rabbi Gershom. My driver's permit, everything says so. I did not complain because I knew that name after 5 years would be brought back. And so I was very, very much impressed, and that's when I started to invest myself in Judaism. I studied Hebrew at a younger age. I knew how to read services in Hebrew. At my bar mitzvah, I was reading everything very well. And that is my journey to rabbinic school. I came to rabbinic school in 2003. And this is another story. Because I didn't even think that I would go to rabbinic school. So I was invited here in San Francisco at one of these big hotels, an organization called the Holashon, led by Dr. Garrett Tobin. May his soul rest in peace. And his wife, Diane Tobin, who is still alive here in San Francisco. They called a conference of multiple cultural Jews from South America, from Africa, Asia, everywhere. We were there. And we represented Uganda and Africa. At the end of the conference, Dr. Garrett Tobin, may he rest in peace, pulled me aside and said, can we have coffee? So I was with my brother, we went for coffee. He said, how can we help you? And I said, me or community? He said, no, first of you as the leader of the community. I said, it was a Sunday. The next day on Monday, flights were arranged from here to Los Angeles to go and speak to Rabbi Hudson, Rabbi Cheryl Perez at the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies. They discovered that although I knew how to read Hebrew, my skills were not appropriate enough to start rabbinic school. So they arranged for 2 teachers from Israel, Israeli teachers, to educate each and every student who was not ready. And I was one of them, and there were 2 or 3 others. We attended a crash program. So when I went back to Uganda, I had to bring my wife and the 2 children to Los Angeles. Coming from a place where there's no running water, there's no electricity, and it is a village, no paved road, no freeway like the 405 or 101. And so we, first time to fly in an airplane, we landed in LAX, and then a wonderful family received us with flowers, and they drove us all the way to Bel Air, from a place where there's no electricity to Bel Air. And Bel Air is where there is the UJ or the AJU now. We are given an apartment, 2 bedrooms with a bathroom, with the kitchen, and we don't know how to use any of those things. So my wife had to be trained how to turn on gas. I was the first one to try, and it went ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. They said, okay, when you do that, you have to return it that way in order for the fire to come. Nowadays, I see the technology has even gone beyond that. It is digital. You just press certain, and even if you touch it, doesn't burn. Amazing. But the gas was really amazing, because in Uganda we cooked on firewood outside. If it rained, you had to postpone cooking until after the rain. Or if it was cooking and the rain came, to quench the fire, put the fire off, unless you had a method of protecting that. And we are in a place where my children want to go and fetch water. You know what fetch water is? Walk 2 miles to the well, an open well with a bucket, draw water, put on your head, and walk back and forth. And we are in this place where the well is in the house. And my daughter wants to do a shower instead of using a bucket and a cup like we used to do. You just have to balance between warm and cold water, and it will flow over you. And I remember Daphna, my daughter, who was 7 years old, went to the bathroom. We did not know, and she was taught fast. While we were learning to turn on the stove and so on, she was learning to shower. And she went and locked herself inside. You know these doors where you turn a knob and you are locked in. We were looking for her. She's in the shower for almost 1 hour until we knocked, Daphna, come out. And the whole shower was full of, and I'm having a shower. We had to control our children because they go to the shower, they don't want to leave. So, and my wife loved the washing machine. Instead of washing one piece by piece, take all your dirty laundry into a machine and don't even wait. At one time, the first time she wanted to sit there and wait, and then until somebody said, no, you can't leave. You will come later when the cloth is clean, and then you dry it very easily. The dishwasher was a miracle. And I'm saying this because after 5 years, going back was difficult. We were crying. My wife wanted to take the dishwasher, the washing machine, the flight. My children wanted to pack each and everything. Our house was full, but the airline wanted only 2 bags. So we were fighting about what to take and not to take. Very, very difficult. I was particularly crying because I was going back to a country where you could die because of a mosquito bite, where you could die because you drank water from an open well, which is contaminated. You could die of malaria, you could die of typhoid. We had 3 of our relatives die when we were in rabbinic school. 2 died of malaria. Actually, the 3 of them died of malaria. And to survive malaria, you need to have mosquito nets, you need to have a place where you diagnose. They take blood out from you so that they can check if you have it or not, and the treatment should start as soon as possible. So that's why they died. There was nothing like that. And so when going back, we communicated all this to Dr. Garrett Robin, may he rest in peace, and he used his network to fundraise. We took back 10,000 mosquito nets. We gave them to the Jewish community and the non-Jewish community. Mosquitoes don't discriminate when they bite. That was our formula for providing mosquito nets to everybody. And Dr. Garrett Tobin raised money to drill wells, 5 wells for clean water, so people don't drink water that comes from the open wells. And we opened up our boreholes to our non-Jewish neighbors in a spirit of tikkun olam. We also, on my tours, because immediately I went back home, I started returning to the US for speaking tours like these to raise funds. And while I was speaking in Baltimore, there was a family, the Weinberg family, said, saving a life is paramount. We are going to give you a challenge grant. So they donated $100,000 US, and I was to raise another $100 US so that we can build a hospital, a health center. And we built it in 2009 and 10, and we opened it in 2011. We called it the Tobin Health Center after Dr. Garrett Tobin, who passed on immediately we started building. He had the cancer and unfortunately passed on. And we wanted to remember him that way. And I want to tell you that since the opening of that center in 2011, none of our people has died of malaria or typhoid. You can die of other things, but the most killer diseases, which is typhoid and malaria, has not taken our people because we have a laboratory. We also have treatment. Malaria can be treated in 24 hours. You can die in 24 hours, but you can survive in 24 hours. And so we have facilities, and we have a ward where people who are really weak from malaria can stay over. And when I went to Parliament, which is a story that I may not have time to say, when I went to Parliament, I was put on the health committee, and Parliament gave every member of Parliament $50,000 to buy a car. Because if you're a member of parliament, you need to be in a dignified car, SUV. And I said, you know what? I don't need a big, brand new car. So I bought a small car for $20,000 for myself. And $30,000, I bought an ambulance for not only the members of the community, but for everybody. And that ambulance is still there. I am not in parliament anymore, but the ambulance still saves life. Recently, this very year, there was a young woman who was volunteering in our community from New York. Her name is Halayla. The parents, father and mom, called me when she came. She said, our girl has never been out of the US, but we want to respect her choice. She wants to come to Uganda. Will you take care of her? I said, yes, she's going to be my daughter. And when she came, she was very funny. At the end of her trip, when it was like 1 week to go, she developed complications in her belly. She had appendicitis, right? I had not known about it. And she was 5 hours away from Kampala in our village. And she needed immediate surgery. It was Friday. So what I did is, we have what we call pikuach nefesh, means saving a life takes precedence over anything. So I told the congregation, I'm not here for Shabbat. I put her in the ambulance and I drove her myself because I didn't want to take chances. She was entrusted to me. The trip to Kampala takes 5 hours because of traffic jam. But the ambulance has lights and so I put that, the alarm and this, and I drove really so fast. Dangerously fast, but I'm also a very good driver. So in 2.5 hours we were in Kampala. And I took her to an emergency room immediately, and her life was saved because of the ambulance. And we have done so to very many people, including non-Jewish people. So the health has improved. Unfortunately, our community is still a subsistence family community. We have improved the health. When I was in parliament, I brought electricity to 400 villages. But before I brought electricity to 400 villages, the whole nation had helped to bring some electric lines at one of our villages. And so going to parliament was beneficial in that way. And going to parliament was also beneficial in the fact that a country that once forbade Judaism, I was in its parliament with the kippah. And actually one member of parliament wanted to rule me out of order for wearing a kippah when other members of parliament are not wearing anything. And the Speaker of Parliament said, you know what? Rabbi Gershom is a bishop of the Jewish people. Would you take away anything from your bishop? And so a kippah is allowed in parliament even today. We are subsistence farmers and we are in the process of transitioning, because to be subsistence farmers is to suffer from food shortage during droughts or during excessive rain. So in my tour, I'm trying to appeal to whoever is able to support our microcredit program. We have started a micro loan program, and there's a committee. I'm not part of the committee. They decide who gets the loan, which is almost interest-free, so that people can engage in businesses. And as I'm going to show you, you will see the pictures of our community and maybe the pictures of some of the people who have already pioneered this, so that our community can continue to thrive. And as we said, I'm Israel Chai. I thank you so much for your audience. And now we can move on to the slideshow, and then you will ask questions. And maybe at the end, we will do some pieces of music from our community, as always. So those of you who did not know where Uganda is located, it is right there, a landlocked country in East Africa. And the man I talked about, Semei Kapungu, who circumcised himself, is this gentleman. And his followers, you can see a multitude of people behind, dressed in white. This picture must have been taken on one of the festivals. I'm not sure whether it was a Rosh Hashanah or anything. And he presented himself as a leader of a Jewish community. His residence is still there, although it is falling apart. The unfortunate part of it is that his children all went to school. The reason I'm saying our community is a subsistence family, it's because schools were reserved for Christians. And any Jew who attempted to go to school became Christian. So all his children and grandchildren went to school, they became lawyers, doctors, and they became Christian. So none was there to take care of that family home. And Semei Kapungu's legacy now lives amongst us who chose to be subsistence farmers. My dad did not go to school, my mom didn't go to school, they were farmers. And going to school was because I lived during Idi Amin's time. Idi Amin, being a Muslim, was also affected by the Christian missionary dominance of schools. And so as a president, he said, now all schools, whether Christians, they must be free for everyone. That's the positive part of Idi Amin. We gained education, my generation and above. And up to now, the schools don't require people to convert to Christianity. These were the first rabbis of the community, and my grandfather here was one of them. And this was taken later after Semei Kapungu had passed on, and my grandfather had become the head of that rabbinic group. This is my family in the early days of 1980. I told you 1979 I declared that I would be a rabbi, and they began to respect me as a child and to call me rabbi, and they also began to conduct myself as such. Can you guess who I am there in the picture? A child of 12 years, not amongst those standing. The elders are standing and we are seated. It is not very clear.
Second row middle.
Okay, let me see. Not that one. This one is my sister, she's still alive. She has 6 children and grandchildren. This one is also my sister, also alive. Who is this guy? It is me. So I have this one. And this one is no longer alive, but the rest are alive. My parents and my aunts not alive, but the baby is alive. She has children. This one is not alive, this one is not alive, that one is not alive. So this is my family picture. Talking about Idi Amin and the firing squad, this was an execution in Mbale town where we come from. The 2 of them were accused of opposing Idi Amin, and there was a public execution of them by firing squad. I talked about going to rabbinic school in Los Angeles. This was 2008 ordination. And, going to rabbinic school was, as I told you already, because of Dr. Garrett Tobin and Beholashon. In one of my fundraisings since then was to build a synagogue, because our community was growing. From maybe 1,000, now we are almost 3,000. Because of conversions, people do like to convert to Judaism. So a family in Orange County gave another challenge grant, and we built a synagogue in their name, the Stern Synagogue. I cannot explain what is there. You might be aware of what is going on that way and here. And this is self-explanatory, just pictures. And here they dressed like COVID response workers. COVID, Actually, I talked about my family, and my older brother passed on during the COVID, and he was the only one in the community who died. He had diabetes, and when he got COVID, he could not survive. Sukkot, Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah, and I don't know what this is. This is Pesach. Okay. I am a Moyer. Because my father is a Moyer also. Was a Moyer. So this is a breed. Bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, weddings. And this is particularly a wedding of my daughter, Daphna, who was in the shower in 2003, in 2022, she got married to Samson, and Samson applied to go to rabbinic school. Now Daphna is back to Los Angeles. She's enjoying the amenities because her husband is in rabbinic school. And she gave birth to my first granddaughter, Shira, who is about 15 months old. This is my wife leading Daphna to the chuppah. I wasn't there. This is my older brother. I was in the chuppah because I was the rabbi at their ceremony. Instead of being a father, I became the rabbi at the ceremony. And this other daughter of mine is going to be bat mitzvah next year in 2024 in December. You are invited to come and attend the bat mitzvah. We celebrated 100 years in 2019 with rabbis and the delegation from Israel, and our non-Jewish neighbors also attended. Like this lady is non-Jewish, she put on a kippah in support of the Jewish community. I want to say that the anti-Semitism has gone down because we have shared, as I said, we have shared our progress with our non-Jewish neighbors in the spirit of Tikkun Olam. And the reason I went to Parliament was that we were able to open up our progress to the other people. They chose me in that very spirit to go to Parliament. They also support Israel. We had only one demonstration in the entire country. While the world was demonstrating in favor of Palestine, even here in the US, in Uganda we had one demonstration in favor of Israel. This is the Tobin Health Center, you can see that one. And this is what has saved the lives. The ambulance is that one. Instead of a cross, we put a Magen David. It's not very visible. The person who, I told them to put a Magen David, a dome, a Magen David, a red Magen David. They put something that is not really visible, and I wasn't happy with them. We have a dental unit at the Tobin Health Center. We also have a maternity wing, which is free. The only place where a woman can go and have bathing services free is our maternity wings, supported by the Women's League for Conservative Judaism. And this is the microcredit program. Every member gets that book, and that is the book has a record of what your transactions and how the progress on your microcredit. And people are now engaged in different businesses, including growing chickens for sale, liquid soap, others are in a salon business. Okay. And this is my granddaughter, Shira, saying hi. So that marks the end of my presentation. And if you have questions, I will ask. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimroma. Uya say shalom, ya say shalom. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimroma. Uya say shalom, ya say shalom. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimroma. Uya say shalom, ya יעשה שלום, אבינו מלכנו, יעשה שלום, הרחמה, יעשה שלום, שוכן כמרומים, יעשה שלום, עושה שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום. Nani ni mirembe, ekiyeyo mukulu, tuweko kutembeyo, esyekule mirembe. Ose shalom, shalom bimroma, uyase shalom, yase shalom. And because tomorrow is Shabbat, I love Shabbat so much. I will share our Echadodi. Maybe you remember me when you welcome Shabbat and light Shabbat candles. Tomorrow, tonight is Hanukkah. I wish you Hanukkah Sameach. Lechadodi, likrakala, bene Shabbat, yabela. Lechadodi, likrakala, bene Shabbat, yabela. Shamor vezachor, ודיבורך, ישמענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתוכחה, לך דודים לקראת העלה, בני שבת נקבלה, והיו למשיסה שופוסייך, ורחקו מפלייך, יסיס עלייך, אלוהייך, ימסוס חכם על קלה, חדודים לקראת קלה, בני שבת לקבלה, ימין ושימאל תפירוסי, ואת אדוני תעריצי על יד איש ופרסי בנשמחה ונגיע וחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת לקבלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת לקבלה בואי בשלום עטרת קלה גם בשמחה ובשמחה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת לקבלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת לקבלה. חנוכה שמח, חג שמח, שבת שלום.